If you've ever trusted someone with everything you had and then watched them smile while they destroyed it, then this story is going to hit you harder than you expect. A man named Carlton Brooks had a house, a business, and a mother who called him every single Sunday at 7 in the morning without fail. But one afternoon, his mother looked at the new maid and said 5 words that Carlton ignored. "That woman is not right." Carlton laughed it off. He told his mother she was being dramatic. He told her she worried too much. 8 months later, Carlton was standing in an empty house with no furniture, no savings, and a daughter who wouldn't stop asking where everything went. His mother didn't say, "I told you so." She just handed him a broom and said, "Let's start cleaning up." So glad you're here. Before the story starts, please like and subscribe. And one more thing, drop your location in the comments. Are you watching from Chicago, Accra, maybe Montego Bay or Dublin? Let us know. Now listen, I'm going to tell you something that's going to make your blood boil. Because what this woman did wasn't just dishonest, it was calculated. Every single move she made was planned from the very first day she walked through that front door with her suitcase and her pressed uniform and that smile. That perfect, careful, patient smile. And by the time anyone figured out what was happening, the damage was already done. Carlton Brooks was 44 years old. He was a big man, 6'2", with broad shoulders that sloped forward slightly, the way men's shoulders do when they've spent years carrying things that weren't theirs to carry. He had a round, open face, dark brown skin, a short beard that he trimmed every Sunday evening with clippers that had been his father's, and deep creases around his mouth that made him look like he was always about to smile, even when he wasn't. He wore the same style of clothes every day: khaki pants, a polo shirt, work boots. He had a gold class ring from Howard University on his right hand that he never took off, and he had a habit of tapping it against hard surfaces when he was thinking. A soft click, click, click that his daughter said sounded like a tiny clock. Carlton owned a catering company called Brooks Family Kitchen. He had started it 12 years ago with $4,000 he borrowed from his mother and a used van he bought from a church deacon who was moving to Florida. The company had grown from Carlton cooking alone in a rented commercial kitchen to a team of 11 people serving weddings, corporate events, church functions, and holiday parties across 3 counties. Carlton did the menus. He did the shopping. He did the books. He tasted every dish before it left the kitchen. His specialty was smoked brisket with a brown sugar glaze that people talked about for weeks after tasting it. He guarded that recipe like it was a birth certificate. Carlton's house was a 3-bedroom colonial on Waverly Road, a quiet street lined with oak trees so old their roots had cracked the sidewalk in 3 places. The house had dark green shutters, a red front door, hardwood floors that Carlton had refinished himself, and a backyard with a brick fire pit he had built the summer his daughter turned 6. The kitchen was the biggest room in the house, which suited Carlton perfectly. It had a farmhouse sink, open shelving lined with mason jars full of dried herbs and spices, and a long wooden island where Carlton and his daughter did homework and prep work and ate dinner side by side every evening. The house smelled like whatever Carlton had been cooking last. On Mondays it was garlic. On Wednesdays it was rosemary. On Fridays it was cinnamon from the sweet potato pie he baked every single week because his daughter Lena asked him to, and Carlton had never once said no to Lena about anything that mattered. Lena was 9 years old. She was small for her age, with her father's dark skin and her mother's narrow face and eyes that were too old for a 9-year-old, the kind of eyes that had already seen something leave and never come back. She wore her hair in 2 puffballs with yellow ribbons, and she carried a composition notebook everywhere she went because she liked to write things down. Facts, observations, questions. She wrote with a purple pen that Carlton replaced every month because she burned through ink the way other children burned through crayons. Lena's mother, Diane, had left when Lena was 3. She moved to the West Coast with a man she met at a conference and sent a card on Lena's birthday every year, sometimes on time, sometimes late, sometimes with the age wrong. Lena kept every card in a shoebox under her bed. She never talked about them. Carlton raised Lena alone. He braided her hair before school, packed her lunch with a handwritten note every day, drove her to piano lessons on Tuesdays and swim class on Thursdays, and read to her every night until she fell asleep. He read slowly, the way his own father used to read to him, pausing at the good parts, letting the words settle. His father, Albert Brooks, had died when Carlton was 22. Heart failure. Carlton kept his father's clippers and his father's Bible, and a photograph of the two of them standing in front of the first van. Albert's hand on Carlton's shoulder, both of them squinting into the sun. And then there was Carlton's mother, Vivian Brooks. She was 71 years old. She lived alone in a small apartment on Lancaster Avenue, 12 minutes from Carlton's house.
She was a retired schoolteacher who had spent 38 years teaching 4th grade, and she approached every situation in life the way she approached a classroom, with structure, suspicion of anything too easy, and an absolute refusal to let nonsense pass unchecked. Vivian was short, barely 5'1", with silver hair she kept in tight curls, and glasses that sat on the tip of her nose like they were always about to fall off, but never did. She wore cardigans in every color and orthopedic shoes that squeaked on tile floors. She had a sharp tongue and a soft heart, and she did not suffer fools, not even if the fool was her own son. Vivian called Carlton every Sunday at 7 in the morning. She arrived at his house every Wednesday at 5 for dinner. She picked Lena up from school every Friday so Carlton could handle his weekend event prep. And she watched everything. Everything. Vivian Brooks missed nothing, the way the ocean misses nothing. It all comes in, it all gets noticed, and if something is wrong, it washes up eventually. Now let me tell you how the trouble walked through the front door. Carlton's house was getting away from him. 12-hour workdays, weekend events, single parenting. By the time he got home most nights, he barely had energy to heat leftovers, let alone mop a floor. The house was clean enough, but clean enough was not Vivian's standard. She mentioned it gently 3 times. Then not so gently. Carlton, that bathroom has not been properly scrubbed in a month. There is toothpaste on the mirror that has been there since Easter. Carlton sighed. Mama, I'm doing my best. I know you are. That's why you need help. Carlton hired a maid. He posted the job on a local service board. He got 4 responses. 3 of them didn't show up for the interview. The 4th arrived 15 minutes early. Her name was Renata Voss. She was 36, tall and lean with sharp cheekbones, light brown eyes, and dark hair cut short above her shoulders. She wore a pressed white blouse and black slacks and carried a leather portfolio with references, a typed resume, and a list of cleaning products she preferred to use. She shook Carlton's hand firmly, looked him in the eye, and said, Mr. Brooks, I take pride in making a home feel like a home. That's what I do. Her references were excellent. A retired judge, a pediatrician, a pastor's wife. Carlton called all 3. Every one of them praised Renata. Reliable, thorough, discreet, trustworthy. The pastor's wife said Renata had worked for her family for 2 years, and she had never found a single thing out of place. Carlton hired her on the spot. Renata started the following Monday. She arrived at 8, let herself in with the key Carlton gave her, and by the time he came home at 6 that evening, the house looked different. Not just clean, different.
The floors gleamed. The kitchen island was polished to a mirror shine. The bathroom smelled like eucalyptus. Lena's room had been tidied without rearranging anything. Every book, every notebook, every stuffed animal was exactly where Lena left it, just neater. The toothpaste on the mirror was gone. Carlton stood in the hallway and took a breath. For the first time in months, the house felt like it was breathing too. Not bad, he said to himself. But what happened next changed everything. Vivian met Renata the following Wednesday. She arrived at 5 for dinner as usual. Renata was still there, wiping down the kitchen counter. She had stayed late to organize the pantry. You must be Mrs. Brooks, Renata said. That smile. The careful one. The one that was warm and measured and never showed too many teeth. Carlton has told me so much about you. Vivian looked at Renata the way she looked at a child who had given the right answer too quickly. Not impressed. Suspicious.
Has he? Vivian said. They shook hands. Renata left. Carlton served dinner. Lena was at the table doing homework in her composition notebook, purple pen moving steadily.
Vivian ate 3 bites of her collard greens and set her fork down. "That woman is not right," she said. Carlton looked up. "Mama, she's been here 1 week." "I don't need a month to read a person, Carlton. I taught 4th grade for 38 years. I know what it looks like when someone is performing." Performing? That smile, that pressed blouse, those references that all sound exactly the same. Nobody is that polished on the first day unless they've practiced being polished. Carlton shook his head. "You're being dramatic." Vivian removed her glasses, cleaned them with her napkin, and put them back on. That was her warning signal. Carlton had seen it 1,000 times. It meant she was about to say something she wouldn't take back. "I raised you to be kind, Carlton, not careless. There is a difference. And right now, you are being careless." Carlton loved his mother, but he was tired. He was stretched thin. The house was clean, Lena was happy, and the toothpaste was off the mirror. He didn't want to fight about a feeling. "Mama, give her a chance. That's all I'm asking." Vivian picked up her fork. She ate the rest of her dinner in silence. But her eyes, behind those glasses that were always about to fall off, those eyes were open. Wide open. And that was only the beginning. Renata settled in. She came 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. She was always on time. She was always thorough. She remembered which cleaning products Lena was allergic to without being told twice. She folded Carlton's shirts the way he liked them, collars flat, sleeves tucked. She organized the spice jars on the kitchen shelf alphabetically, and then reorganized them by frequency of use when Carlton mentioned he preferred it that way. She was, by every measurable standard, perfect. And she was patient. That was the thing Vivian noticed first. Renata was patient the way a spider is patient. She didn't push. She didn't insert herself. She just made herself essential. One small kindness at a time, until the house could not function without her. By the 2nd month, Renata was grocery shopping for Carlton. He gave her his card for household supplies, cleaning products, paper towels, laundry detergent. She asked if she should pick up food while she was at the store. Carlton said sure. She started buying groceries. Good ones. Fresh produce, quality cuts of meat. The receipts were always in the bag, stapled neatly, totals circled in pen. By the 3rd month, Renata was picking Lena up from piano on Tuesdays when Carlton ran late. She sat in the waiting area, quiet and polite, and walked Lena to the car with a steady hand on her shoulder. By the 4th month, Lena was calling her Miss Renata and showing her the composition notebook. Renata read every page. She told Lena her handwriting was excellent. She told her the purple pen was a sophisticated choice. She told her she was the smartest 9-year-old she had ever met. Vivian watched all of this from 12 minutes away, through weekly dinners and Friday pickups and phone calls with Lena, and the worry in her gut grew heavier every week. "She's too close," Vivian told Carlton one Sunday morning on the phone. "She's inserting herself into Lena's life. That's not a maid's job." "Mama, Lena likes her. She's been good for this house." "That's what concerns me. You're looking for a problem that isn't there." Vivian was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Carlton, when a person gives you everything you need without asking for anything in return, you should ask yourself what they're building toward. Because nobody invests that much in someone else's house unless they plan to live in it." Carlton didn't listen. He should have listened. But this story is far from over. By the 5th month, Renata started staying for dinner. Not every night, just once or twice a week. Carlton would insist. She had worked late, reorganizing the garage or deep cleaning the upstairs. It felt rude to send her home hungry. She would sit at the kitchen island beside Lena and eat whatever Carlton had made and compliment every dish with just enough specificity to sound genuine. "The glaze on this brisket is different tonight. Did you add more apple cider vinegar?" Carlton blinked. "I did, actually. You noticed that?" Renata smiled. The careful one. "I notice everything about this house, Carlton." Now, here is where the story takes a turn nobody expected. One Friday afternoon, Vivian arrived to pick up Lena from school. But Lena wasn't waiting outside. The school secretary said Lena had already been picked up by a woman who identified herself as a household employee. Renata. Vivian's blood went cold. She drove straight to Carlton's house. Renata's car was in the driveway.
Vivian let herself in with her spare key. She found Lena at the kitchen island doing homework, a plate of sliced apples in front of her, and Renata sitting beside her, helping with math.
"Grandma!"
Lena jumped off the stool and ran to Vivian. Vivian held her granddaughter tight. Then she looked at Renata over the top of Lena's head.
"I pick Lena up on Fridays," Vivian said. Her voice was even. Her hands were not. Renata tilted her head. "Carlton asked me to get her today. He said you might be running late." "I was not running late. I have never been late in 9 years." Renata raised her palms. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Brooks. There must have been a miscommunication. I was just trying to help." Vivian said nothing more. She took Lena home to her apartment. She fed her dinner. She braided her hair. She tucked her into the guest bed with the quilt she kept there for Friday sleepovers. Then she sat at her kitchen table and made a phone call. Not to Carlton.
To her friend, Estelle Morgan, who had worked in private investigation for 23 years before retiring.
"Estelle, I need you to look into someone for me."
"Who?"
"A woman named Renata Voss. She works for my son, and something isn't right." What Estelle found over the next 2 weeks turned Vivian's suspicion into certainty. Renata Voss was not her real name. Her real name was Renata Kessler. She had used 3 different surnames in the past 10 years. She had worked for 4 different families. In each case, the pattern was identical. She would start as a cleaner. She would make herself indispensable. She would gain access to finances. And then within 6 to 12 months, significant amounts of money would go missing. The retired judge from her references had lost $11,000 in unexplained charges on a credit card Renata had access to. He never pressed charges because he couldn't prove it definitively, and he was embarrassed.
The pediatrician discovered that Renata had been using her Amazon account to order electronics shipped to a different address.
The total was over $7,000. She also didn't press charges. She just let Renata go with 2 weeks severance and changed her passwords. The pastor's wife, the one who praised Renata so highly. Estelle couldn't reach her. The number was disconnected. Estelle pulled the records. There was no pastor's wife by that name in the county. The reference was fake. Vivian sat in her apartment with Estelle's reports spread across her kitchen table. She held her glasses in one hand. Her other hand was trembling. "How much do you think she's taken from Carlton?" Vivian asked. Estelle shook her head. "I don't know yet, but based on the pattern, if she has access to any accounts, it could be substantial." Vivian closed her eyes. She thought about Carlton, her son.
The man who made brisket with brown sugar glaze and packed handwritten notes in his daughter's lunch and tapped his class ring on hard surfaces when he was thinking. The man who was too kind and too tired to see what was sitting at his kitchen island eating his food and reading his daughter's notebook and learning everything about his life one careful, patient, smiling day at a time. She picked up the phone and called him. "Carlton, come to my apartment tonight. Alone. Do not tell Renata." He heard something in her voice he hadn't heard before. Not worry. Not frustration. Fear. He came. Vivian laid out everything. The fake name, the pattern, the previous families, the disconnected reference, the missing money. She spread the papers across the table and let Carlton read every single page. Carlton sat at his mother's kitchen table for 20 minutes without speaking. His class ring clicked against the wood once, twice, and then stopped. His face didn't move. His hands were flat on the table, pressing down like he needed the surface to keep him from falling through the floor. "How much?" he finally said. "We need to check your accounts." They checked that night. Carlton logged into his business account, the one linked to the card he gave Renata for household supplies. Over 5 months, the charges had grown. Slowly at first. An extra $40 here, $60 there. Then larger. A $200 charge at an electronics store. A $300 charge at a furniture outlet. A $500 transfer to a prepaid card. All buried between legitimate grocery runs and cleaning supply purchases. All just small enough to not trigger an alert. The total was $14,600. Carlton stared at the screen. His eyes were wet, but his jaw was set.
"She stole from me," he said. "In my house, in front of my daughter." Vivian sat beside him. She didn't say, "I told you so." She put her hand on his arm and said, "What do you want to do?" "Stay with us, because what happens next will shock you." Carlton wanted to confront Renata immediately. Vivian stopped him. "If you confront her now, she disappears. She changes her name again and does this to another family. We need to do this properly." Vivian was a retired school teacher, but she had the strategic mind of a general. She called Estelle. They called a lawyer. The lawyer contacted the police. The police opened an investigation. But they needed Renata to come back to the house one more time. They needed her to use the card again so the police could document the transaction in real time. Carlton went home. He said nothing. He made dinner. He smiled. He let Renata pick up Lena from piano on Tuesday. He let her organize his office closet. He let her sit at the kitchen island and eat his brisket and compliment the apple cider vinegar. And it nearly killed him. Every click of his class ring was a countdown. On Wednesday morning, Carlton left the house early and told Renata he needed supplies for a weekend event. He left the card on the counter. The police were parked down the street in an unmarked car. Estelle was monitoring the card activity from her laptop. At 11:14 in the morning, a charge appeared. $612 at a department store 20 minutes away. The purchase was a set of luggage, expensive luggage, under the name Renata Voss. The police were waiting when she loaded the bags into her car. They arrested her in the parking lot. She was carrying Carlton's household credit card, a prepaid card loaded with $1,800 of his money, and a set of keys to his house that she had copied without his knowledge. In her car, they found a folder. Inside the folder were detailed notes on Carlton's schedule, his account numbers, his passwords, written in neat handwriting, and a list of items in his house with estimated resale values. The smoked brisket recipe, the one Carlton guarded like a birth certificate, was photocopied and tucked inside a plastic sleeve. She had been cataloging his entire life. Carlton was at work when the detective called. He sat in his van outside a client's house and listened. When the detective told him about the folder, about the copied keys, about the recipe, Carlton hung up the phone, pressed his forehead against the steering wheel, and sat there for 15 minutes. His hands were shaking so badly the van rocked. He called his mother. He couldn't get the words out at first. "Mama," he said, "you were right." Vivian was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Come home, son. Bring Lena. I'm making soup." But the biggest secret hadn't come out yet. When the police searched Renata's apartment, they found more than stolen goods. They found records from 6 other families. 6. Not 4 like Estelle had uncovered. 6 families over 8 years. $31,000 in documented thefts. Electronics, jewelry, cash advances, gift cards, and in every case, the same pattern. The pressed blouse, the leather portfolio, the careful smile, the patience, the slow, methodical insertion into a family's life until she was so embedded that questioning her felt like questioning yourself. 3 of those families had children. In every case, Renata had befriended the children first. She knew that children were the key. Win the child, and you win the parent. Make yourself indispensable to the most precious person in the house, and nobody will question you. Nobody will listen to the grandmother who says something isn't right. Renata was charged with multiple counts of theft, fraud, and identity theft. She did not make bail. The trial was scheduled for March. And just when Carlton thought the worst was behind him, he discovered the last thing Renata had taken. Lena's composition notebook. The one with the purple pen notes, the one she carried everywhere. The one where she wrote her facts and observations and questions. It was gone. It wasn't in Lena's room. It wasn't in her backpack. It wasn't in the car. It was in the folder the police recovered from Renata's car. Tucked between Carlton's account numbers and the brisket recipe. Renata had taken it. Not to read, not to steal information, but because she knew it mattered. Because taking something a child loves is the cruelest kind of power. Because she could. When the detective returned the notebook, Lena held it with both hands and pressed it against her chest. She didn't say anything for a long time. Then she looked up at her father. "Daddy, why did she take my book?" Carlton knelt down in front of his daughter. He put his hands on her shoulders. "Because some people don't understand that the things that matter most aren't worth any money at all, baby." Lena opened the notebook and checked every page, every fact, every observation, every question written in purple ink. It was all there. Nothing was missing. She closed it and said, "She didn't read it. The pages aren't bent. When somebody reads my book, the pages get bent because they press too hard. She just took it." Carlton looked at his daughter, 9 years old, noticing what adults missed, writing things down because the world made more sense on paper. He pulled her into his arms and held her. "Now let me tell you what happened after the storm." Carlton changed the locks. He canceled the credit card. He changed every password. He scrubbed the house himself that weekend. Every surface, every shelf, every cabinet Renata had touched. He washed the sheets on Lena's bed twice. He reorganized the spice jars and put them back the way he liked them. Not alphabetical, not by frequency, just the way his hands knew where to find them in the dark. He burned the photocopy of the brisket recipe in the fire pit in the backyard. Lena watched the paper curl and blacken. "Is that your secret recipe?" she asked. "It was a copy. The real one is up here." He tapped his temple. "And here," he tapped his chest. "Nobody can steal what lives inside you, Lena. Remember that." Vivian moved in for 2 weeks. She slept in the guest room and made breakfast every morning. Eggs, grits, toast with strawberry jam. She walked Lena to the bus stop. She did the laundry. She sat in the kitchen with Carlton in the evenings, and they drank tea and didn't talk about Renata. They talked about Albert. They talked about Theodore's clippers. They talked about the first van and the $4,000 and the deacon who moved to Florida. "Mama," Carlton said one evening, "I should have listened to you." Vivian sipped her tea. "Yes, you should have. You saw it the first day. I saw it in the smile, Carlton. Too much warmth with no history behind it. That's not kindness. That's a costume." Carlton looked at his hands. His class ring caught the kitchen light. "How do I trust someone again after this?" Vivian set down her cup. "You trust the people who were there before she arrived and who are still here after she's gone. That's how you know who's real. Not by what they do in the beginning, by who stays." The trial took place in March. Renata was convicted on 8 counts. She was sentenced to 4 years. Carlton testified. He wore a pressed shirt and his class ring, and he spoke clearly, without anger, without drama. He told the court what she took from his business. He told the court what she took from his home. Then he told the court about the composition notebook. She took a 9-year-old girl's notebook. The notebook had nothing of value in it. No account numbers, no passwords, just a child's thoughts written in purple ink. She took it because she could. And that tells you everything you need to know about who this woman really is. The courtroom was quiet. The judge nodded. Renata stared at the table in front of her and did not look up. After the verdict, Carlton walked out of the courthouse and found Vivian sitting on a bench in the hallway. She had been there the entire trial. 4 hours on a wooden bench with her orthopedic shoes squeaking every time she shifted. He sat down beside her. "Thank you, Mama." "For what?" "For not letting me be careless." Vivian patted his knee. "That's what mothers are for, baby, even when you don't want to hear it, especially when you don't want to hear it." Carlton put his arm around his mother. She leaned into him slightly. They sat on that bench for a few more minutes, watching people walk past, saying nothing, needing nothing except the weight of each other. 6 months later, things had settled. Carlton's business had recovered. He hired a bookkeeper, a retired accountant named Hank who wore suspenders and had breath that smelled like peppermints, and who Vivian approved of after a 45-minute interrogation that Hank later described as the most thorough interview of my professional career. Lena started 5th grade. She had a new purple pen. She had a new composition notebook, same brand, same size. On the first page, she had written a title in careful letters, "Things I Know for Sure." One evening in October, Carlton was sitting on the back porch near the fire pit. The air smelled like smoke and fallen leaves. Lena came outside with her notebook and sat beside him.
Daddy, can I read you something? Always. Lena opened the notebook to the first page. She cleared her throat the way she had seen her teacher do. Things I know for sure. Number 1. My daddy makes the best brisket in the world and nobody can steal the recipe because it lives inside him. Number 2.
My grandma is never wrong about people, even when you wish she was. Number 3. Lena paused. She looked at her father. Home is not the house. Home is who stays. Carlton's eyes burned. He put his arm around his daughter and pulled her close. The fire pit crackled. The oak trees above them creaked in the wind. His class ring clicked softly against the arm of the chair. From inside the house, through the open kitchen window, he could hear Vivian washing dishes and humming a hymn she had been humming for as long as he could remember. The same hymn. Every time. Like a song the house itself had learned. The kitchen smelled like cinnamon. It was Friday. Daddy? Lena said. Yeah, baby? I think Grandma should move in. For real. Carlton looked at the kitchen window. He could see his mother's silhouette, small and steady, glasses on the tip of her nose, hands in the soapy water, swaying to the hymn. You know what? He said. I think so too. The next Sunday, Vivian's phone rang at 7 in the morning. It was Carlton. Mama, I have a question. I'm listening. How fast can you pack? Vivian was quiet for 1 second. Then she laughed. A deep, warm, rolling laugh that sounded like everything was going to be okay. Because it was. And it was. And that's where we'll leave this story. If it touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Like, subscribe, and tell us in the comments, what lesson did you take from this? See you next time.